Social institutions. You must have come across the word institution, which commonly refers to a formal organization like, for example, All India Institute of Medical Sciences. The sociologists use the term institution differently. Institution can be defined as a form of organization that performs some of the essential functions of a society. Institutions are strongly defined by cultural values and norms and are generally viewed and accepted as essential part of the social structure and the societies in general. Like the social structures we discussed in our previous unit, institutions are made up of relationships among statuses and roles. Some of the important institutions in a society are family, marriage, political system, economic system, education, religion, healthcare institutions, law and order. In this unit, we will be discussing the family and marriages, the economic and political system, and religion. It has been found that specific individuals or the roles that they perform may be criticized by rarely the institution itself. For instance, one may criticize the father's role in a family as being too authoritative, or one may criticize an individual father for not taking his parental duties seriously, but societies rarely even contemplate doing away with the institutions itself. Though people are wondering, especially in the West, if the institution of marriage is losing its ground, since more and more people are in a living together arrangement. Sociologists are also of the opinion that the institution of marriage may not have so much acceptance as before, because it is possible to look for companionship, sex, children, sharing of housework outside the institution of marriage, which are increasingly getting social acceptance. As you can see from the above discussion, social institutions are not only tied up with the functions that they attend to, but depend on the acceptance of the general society. It is generally found that social institutions are strongly supported by the cultural norms and values. Family. The family is one of society most basic institutions. This is hardly any society where family does not exist. Family as an institution has been considered universal. Though some sociologists have often raised the questions whether the communal setting, it was found that though children grew up in a dormitory system, they often spent enough time with their parents who had a room of their own to establish a link. This link formed them into a primary group of a family. Though families and their patterns and functions may vary across societies, they share certain key features. So, sociologists have tried to define family on the basis of these features. The family has been loosely defined as a social group related by ancestry, marriage, or adoption who live together and form an economic unit and cooperatively rear their young. The family as an institution, though universally found in many societies, has been found its own slant or structure in different cultures. Sociologists have divided families into two types of family. The two types of family are the extended family and the nuclear family. The extended family is made up of more than two generations, like grandparents, their children, and the grandchildren. An extended family may also consist of other kin members like uncles and aunts. The nuclear family is based on marriage ties. When a couple decided to get married, they may want to move out of their respective parents' house and set up house on their own and raise a family. A nuclear family is made up of husband and wife and their dependent children. Although in many societies extended families are common, the most common family types found in many societies is the nuclear family, especially in modern societies. You must have noticed that in India, the nuclear family is much more prevalent in urban areas than in rural areas. Functions of the family. The fact that all societies have family as one of the primary institutions makes one consider that what does family do for the society and its sustenance. The functionalists believe that had it not been for the essential functions that family performs, it would have ceased to exist for long now. In fact, some sociologists argue that families' functions were decreasing and that is would cease to exist in near future. Though some of the functions are also performed by other institutions at the same time, some of the key functions of the family remains nevertheless intact. Let us examine some of the functions that family as an institution performs. A. Socialization. The family is an important institution which rears the children and gives them the social experience of learning the ways of their respective culture. This process, known as socialization, happens throughout the lifetime of an individual. A child also learns what to do and what not to do, not only from his immediate family but from school when she or he starts going to school, and also from the larger world. However, the family has been going to school and also from the larger world. However, the family has been recognized as the primary agent of socialization. It is primarily the family that takes care of the young in every society. It is only recently that the welfare state has stepped in to take care of children who are abandoned. This is happening largely in the industrialized societies. However, the nuclear family of mother and father share the primary responsibility of the young along with the extended family in some instances. B. Reproductive and sexual functions. In almost all societies, it is the family which is the legitimate institution. It allows the continuation of generations by recognizing socially and legally the offspring born to a married couple. Children born outside of marriage very often are heaped with ridicule and displeasure, making marriage and family the primary options for one who want to have children. Marriage and family together also regulate sexual activity. All societies enforce incest taboo, a cultural norm that forbids sexual relations or marriage between certain kin. Exactly which kin are subject to the incest taboo is culturally variable. Among the Dravidians, cross cousin, mother's brothers or father's sister's children, marriage is possible, whereas in the north it would be considered incest. One of the primary significance of incest taboo is to encourage alliance outside the family and to regulate sexuality. See, economic functions. Families in the past were economically more independent than the families of today. Though among hunting and gathering societies and among people who practice subsistence farming and in many traditional societies, family, especially extended family, functions like a corporation. In modern industrial societies, other institutions perform the larger economic functions. However, the family still operates as an economic unit where husband and wife share their resources, own many things together, and take up financial burdens together. D. Identity and social status. A person acquires a sense of identity, be it ethnic, linguistic, religion, and to some extent class, directly from the family. A sense of identity is formed within the socializing agent of family. The ascribed status of an individual is transferred from the family to the individual. E. Emotional security. One of the fundamental functions that a modern family performs lies in providing emotional security and support to its members. While some of the other functions, educational, economic, sexual, and reproductive, are increasingly going outside of the institutions of family, the emotional security is still largely taken up by the family, especially in the present context of increasing nuclear families. So far, we have discussed family as one of the fundamental and basic social institutions. In our next section, we will talk about marriage, a very closely related institution which makes family possible. Family as one of the fundamental and basic social institutions. In our next section, we will talk about marriage, a very closely related institution which makes family possible. Marriage is an institution is an Marriage as an institution is closely related to the institution of family. Families are, after all, formed with coming together of two individuals and raising children together. The coming together of two individuals in the in the socially approved sense is what forms a marriage. Marriage, therefore, is much more than an individual preference for another person. Marriage as an institution is guided by several rules, perceptions, and rituals which differ from society to society. But there are very few societies where alliance between two people and the consequent parenting is not under the supervising eyes of the society. The marriage as an institution itself is undergoing changes. For instance, some societies are now beginning to accept marriage between same sexes. These developments do questions the institutions of marriage and the functions it performs. However, it is found that marriage is one of those institutions which is found in almost all societies in some form or the other. Let us look at some of the basic prescriptions governing the choice of a mate and the different types of marriages available in the society. Rules governing marriage. A. Incest taboo. One of the primary prohibitions in marriage is that of incest taboo. Incest is a sexual activity between close family members. It is a taboo in most societies, a criminal offense and an impediment to marriage. But the exact definition of what is a close family member differs from society to society. Some prohibit relations inside a nuclear family, while others prohibit relations with nucleus and aunts, with uncles and aunts, nephews, nieces, and cousins as well. Exogamy, a rule which insists that one can marry only outside of one's group or lineage. What is a group? What is a group is relative to a particular society or context. You may marry outside your lineage, exogamy, but within one's own racial or ethnic group. It is held that exogamy originated as communities and groups wanted to expand their social network through alliances. Endogamy. This rule dictates marriage within one's group. Caste groups are said to be endogamous as one marries with one's own caste as a general rule. Types of marriage. The scope of marriage is expanding with increasing acceptance of same-sex marriage. However, the following are some of the most cited examples of the different forms of marriages. Polygamy. The term indicates a type of marriage where there is more than one spouse. A. Polyandry. A marriage where the woman has several husbands. Some parts of Tibet practice polyandry. These marriages are more frequent in pastoral societies where men travel away for long stretches. B. Polygamy. This form of marriage is much more common in many societies, especially where wives add to the wealth and prestige of a man, like a chief, tribal head, or a king, or when a man inherits a widow from a brother. There are several other reasons, but no chief explanation as to why this form of marriage is more common than polyandry. Monogamy. The most commonly found modern form of marriage is between heterosexual partners with an implicit understanding that sexual relationship is only between the married partners. This form of marriage is most idealized in the West. Another term gaining increasing currency due to increasing incidence of divorce is the term serial monogamy. The term, as is indicative, is a monogamous marriage but in series. Each marriage terminating before a fresh one can be established with a different partner. Having discussed some of the fundamental but elementary institutions such as family and marriage, we will talk about the economic institutions in our next section. But before that, we will recapitulate some of the ideas through a check your progress exercise. Economic institutions cater to the survival needs of community. Every society and community develops ways of coping and everyday situations of life. Social institutions are nothing but patterned arrangements and networks which attend to everyday survival needs. The economic institutions are built around the survival needs of a society. Different societies have come up with different economic systems which address the three aspects of any economic system: the production of goods and services, the distribution of these if there is surplus, and the consumption of the goods and services. As we discussed in our earlier sections, family, which is viewed by sociologists and anthropologists as one of the primary and elementary institutions, has largely been supplemented and even replaced by institutions of economy and polity. For the vast majority of human history, the family was the economy, the polity, the religious system, healthcare system, a socialization and educational system, and so on. The other institutions began to emerge as separate and distinct from the role family was performing. In the following sections, we will discuss how different economic systems have evolved over time. While economic systems have been many times looked at front on looked at from an evolutionary perspective, in this unit, we do not suggest that one system is any less complex than the other. In fact, it is very difficult to fathom as to why certain economies continue to survive despite large scale intermingling and diffusion of ideas and technology. In your subsequent reading in social science, you may find that these systems or institutions are nuanced and much more complex. Here we will have a broad and synoptic look at different forms of economic systems. Types of economic systems. The different types of economic systems that we will discuss are broad generalizations. In reality, they are much more complex and mixed, and in a world which is increasingly interconnected, there is no pure type. However, for purposes of understanding, we would present the following types. A. Hunting and gathering economy. The most basic level of economic development with the simplest division of labor is the hunting and gathering economy. By division of labor, we mean economic specialization of society's tasks. Each of these tasks is connected with other related tasks. In the hunting and gathering economy, there is no cultivation and no manufacturing. People obtain their survival necessities directly from nature. The man usually hunt and women gather fruit, root, etc. These societies are organized in a small bands of people, around 15 to 30 people. The small size of such societies is dictated by the nature of their economy. Hunting and gathering can support only a limited number of people. At subsistence level, producing enough food, clothing, shelter to be able to survive. There is no surplus, in other words, there is nothing left after people meet their basic needs. Hunting and gathering societies are often nomadic. Once they use up available resources in one place, they move on to the other place, usually within a limited range. Since hunting gathering societies have a limited degree of specialization of tasks or discussion of labor, the band or clan had a greater degree of similarity of experience. Therefore, there is a greater level of consciousness and community participation in all aspects of life. Also, ownership is communal. From the origin of human societies several million years ago, roughly around 10,000 BC, all societies had hunting and gathering economies. Today, there are few societies which practice hunting and gathering. Even if they do, they have introduced new techniques and influences from the larger world around them. Some of the best examples of hunting gathering societies is the bush people of Kalahari Desert. B. Pastoral and horticultural economy. When small societies learned the more complex mechanism of sowing seeds and growing plants and breeding animals so that they could domesticate and breed herds of them, they were in a position to enter a new phase, the pastoral phase. This phase involved cultivation on a small scale, usually gardens, for immediate, limited subsistence level consumption. The technology used was very simple, primarily human power and human tools such as hoes and plows that are more often pushed by a person. The other aspect of this economy is the herding of livestock. These tasks of growing plants and raising animals obviously involved a fair amount of settled life. Among the pastoralists, there are nomadic varieties that follow a seasonal migration pattern that can vary from year to year. The time and destination of migration are determined primarily by the needs of herd animals for water and fodder. These nomadic societies do not create permanent settlements, but they live in tents or other relatively easily constructed dwelling year round.
The pastoral society is larger than a hunting gathering society, but still relatively smaller. The division of labor is little based on age and sex, as in the hunting gathering societies. Agrarian economy. Many social scientists and experts believe that cultivation of crops probably started in an agrarian economy, where cultivation of crops took primacy over hunting and gathering of food. This is accompanied by technological innovations such as metal tools, the invention of the plough using animal power to tilling of the land. In agricultural societies, permanent settlement are the rule. Sufficient food surplus can be produced to feed larger groups. Thus, agrarian societies are organizationally more complex with definitive hierarchical structures, with more surplus food available. Some members of the society were free to pursue other occupations like weaving, poetry, metalwork, etc. Economies made it possible for towns and cities to develop and for full time craftspeople and traders to emerge. There was also sufficient production to support a ruling class as well as range of specialized occupations, including administrations, soldiery, and scholars. Many eminent civilizations were agrarian societies. Ancient Rome was a bustling city with links to distant points by trade routes both by land and sea. Industrial economy. During the last 200 or more years, the changes that have taken place in social organization and economic systems have been tremendous. The shift was machines replacing human and animal power. The replacing of hand labor with power driven machinery and the economic and the social change that resulted from this is known as industrial revolution. Various path breaking innovations such as the steam engine, spinning jenny, among others, made possible machinized production on a large scale to meet needs of the masses of people. From England, industrialization spread to Europe and other parts of the world. Since the power driven machinery had to be stationed at a particular place as they were huge, they arose the factory system. The factory is a place where workers could assemble at one place and work on the machine. The cost, size, and complexity of the machinery made it unsuitable for the earlier system of scattered production in small shops and homes. The factory system had many consequences. A new class of factory workers emerged. These workers had a different relationship with factory owners and their employers, which was impersonal and detached, in contrast to hand production, which had individual touch and interpretation. Factory production was standardized. Standardization made it possible for parts to be easily replaceable, leading to assembly line production, where different parts were produced by different workers and then assembled together. The kind of assembly line production produced a sense of estrangement from one's work. Karl Marx, the famous thinker, elaborated on this situation of the alienation. On this situation of alienation. Alienation is a condition in which a person feels estranged from activity in which she or he is engaged in. Karl Marx viewed alienation as a result of capitalization. He said workers become alienated from their work because they do not own machines they use or the products they make. Alienation is a state of being wherever there is a acute machinization and minute division of labor. Whether the system is capitalist or socialist, the industrial worker who is just another cog in the wheel does not have the involvement and job satisfaction of the pre-industrial craftsperson. We have, of course, moved well past the stage of industrial economy to economies which thrive on service sectors. Some thinkers suggest that we are now in a post-industrial stage. The post-industrial stage means a decline in the importance of manufacturing, especially heavy industries such as steel, and a growth in service and information technology. Technologies which have made it possible for vast information to be stored, retrieved, and dissipated through the use of computers. A related development in the so-called information age is increased global communication and other networks. These new developments have been broadly attributed to an umbrella social process and phenomenon called globalization. Political systems. In our discussion earlier on the hunting gather societies, we referred to the fact that many societies moved in small groups of about 15 to 20 people. You can well imagine that in such societies there is no felt need for a government or a state and various associated structures like bureaucracy and police. In small societies, maintenance of law and order or regulating everyday practices does not require formal arrangement. Some of these societies are known as Aiya which means without having defined hierarchies of authority. In these societies, the political power is diffused or dissipated, and decision making is highly democratic or relatively democratic. The elders of the kin usually exercise much more authority than the younger members, which brings us to the question, what exactly is authority? Who is vested with authority? Political institutions that we know today are built around the question of authority. Political institutions that we know today are in effect built around the question of authority. A classic analysis by Max Weber lays the groundwork for the sociological study of authority. According to Weber, legitimate power is referred to as authority, and by power, Weber means the ability of a person to control the behavior of others so that they can act in accordance with the power holders' dictates or rules, whether they like it or not. Thus, power involves the imposition of will of one person or segment of society on another. Power, of course, can be legitimate where the person exercising authority has the people's support. Some may exercise power by brute force at gunpoint. Weber, in his analysis of legitimate authority, identifies three forms of authority. In our next section, we will discuss their three items of authority. Types of authority. Weber distinguished three types of authority which he differentiated in terms of their sense of legitimation. Number one, charismatic authority. This form of authority is based on the particular qualities an individual exhibits, which brings about a very strong emotional devotion by his followers. The term charisma means the gift of grace, which originally had a religion's connotation, but which is used in popular parlance to refer to someone who sways the crowds with her presence and personality. Leaders such as Mahatma Gandhi, Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. have exercised a charismatic authority over their followers. Charismatic authority is dependent on a person. It lasts as long as the person exists. In some cases, the charismatic authority has a sanction of tradition, in which case it combines the elements of both personality and sacred traditions, as in the case of the Tibetan spiritual and political head, the Dalai Lama. Second, traditional authority. Traditional authority is legitimated by a historic practice or custom. These practices are considered sacred by people and therefore inviolable. The divine origin attributed to a ruler or an emperor stems from the notion that the authority exercised is sacred and divine. According to Weber, the feudal system of authority is also traditional because the relationship between feudal lords and vassals was based on custom and regarded as sacred. Though many societies have adopted more modern forms of legitimacy, the vestiges of traditional authority can be found everywhere. The continuation or the ceremonial continuation of monarchy, whether in Britain or Japan, is an expression of traditional authority. Third, legal authority. Legitimacy is based on rules, procedures, and rational legal logic in the case of legal authority. Most modern democracies follow legal authority. In an ideal typical sense, to collect a president or prime minister of a country, there are legal rules and laws which are laid down on what Weber calls rational procedures. These three formations Weber had proposed are approximations or models for the purpose of categorization and identification. In reality, none of these types of authority exists in the true sense. For instance, when people elect leaders who represent them to take on a government, they choose them on the basis of their charisma they exhibit as well. The rules and procedures for exercise of authority as well as the process of electing a representative are also not always followed by the book. Nevertheless, Weaver gives a typology that is useful in identifying different sources of legitimacy. In our next section, we will briefly introduce you to a predominant political institution, the nation state. Emergence of nation state. As we have seen, as societies become more complex and larger, there arose a need to regulate and order the societies. Traditional societies, especially if they are make do with leadership that was not based on elaborate legal procedures. Community leaders, tribal chiefs were elected or divinely or ordained to conduct the affairs of people. In civilization, which were agrarian based, there were empires and monarchies who were primarily interested in collecting taxes, defending themselves against enemies, maintaining law and order. They were not very interested in local political situations. In India, for instance, the village leadership was the local panchayats, which was caste based. These people had a sense of loyalty to their community, ethnicity rather than the empire, unless it was personal loyalty. However, with the coming of modern nation state, the loyalty also shifted to nation. Let us see how that happened. A nation state is characterized by the nation of a single sovereign unity, oblique a nation with well-defined boundaries. The member of the nation are citizens who owe an allegiance to the nation. This feeling or ideology, which places a central value on loyalty to a national state, is called nationalism. The state represents all people of the nation and governs the citizens. The modern state involves itself in a wide variety of activities. Not only does it collect revenues, protect itself from enemies, from which it builds an army, maintains law and order through the police, but it involves itself in activities which are said to be welfareist. The modern state tries to provide free or subsidized education, healthcare facilities, and legal legislate laws which protect the weak and marginalized groups of society. The growth of the modern state is accompanied by the growth of bureaucracy, which is the administrative setup performing the tasks of the state through properly laid out rules and procedures. Because of these rigorous following of rules and procedures, bureaucracy are said to be ineffective rather than helpful in carrying out tasks. But the nation state and bureaucracy is very much a part of modern landscape. You will read more about these political arrangements and systems later. In this unit, an attempt has been made to provide you with some of the basic notions, terms and concepts in the study of the political institutions. In our next section, we shall talk about a very important social institution, namely religion. Religion. When sociologists study religion, they are not connected with supernatural per se. They look for the social expression of religious experience and religious beliefs and the inspired social behavior. The social roles connected with religion, such as that of the clergy and social organization of religion, sects and domination cults, are also studied by sociologists. While these are all aspects of religion, you might still be wondering what is religion and how do sociologists define it. What is religion? To answer this elusive and difficult question, Emile Durkheim undertook a study of Australian Aborigines, feeling that elementary forms of religion could be best studied in tribal culture. He presented his views on religion in his book, The Elementary Forms of Religious Life. In his work, he made a distinction between everyday ordinary events, which he called profane, from those things which are held in awe, in fear, reverence, respect, and kept apart as the sacred. The sociology of religion also deals with a variety of social activities that many may not consider religious. Some beliefs may not have supernatural aspects to it, but are still held as sacred. Some beliefs provide meaning and answers to life's questions, which are normally under the purview of religion. Sociologist Robert Bellah uses the term civil religion to refer to a set of symbols, beliefs, values, and practices about ultimate meaning of life in particular society. Civil religion provides secular alternatives to religion. Some political ideologies, for instance, communism, assume religious quality. Nationalizing as an ideology has also the sacred quality that has ritual accompaniment, accompaniments, which can be brought under the definitional ambit of civil religion. Religion then can be viewed as a system of sacred things and their interrelationship. Above all, religion is a social phenomenon having to do with those aspects of human existence that are socially defined as sacred. Religious systems are defined and constructed by people. They are human creations. Religion is a social product and people collectively produce religion. From the preceding discussion, you must have observed that religion is very much a social phenomenon. It is clear that society and religion are closely related. One way to examine that interrelationship is to understand the social significance of religion, both in the positive functional consequences and its negative impacts. Positive aspects of religion. Some analysts, especially the evolutionary thinkers, looked at religion as assuaging the fears of people, fear arising out of unexplained catastrophist or the power of nature. Thus, it is explained that in many primitive or simple societies, there is a stress on appropriating nature and worship of nature and attributing supernatural forces to things and living beings. Religion continues to be a source of comfort and consolation for many in times of crisis of all kinds. Religion helps accept the inevitable and unchanging aspects of life, be it death, catastrophes, etc. Religion also provides a worldview or a cosmology which helps explain reality and provides a worldview that acts as guide in an uncertain world. Most religions also have assent on moral and ethical issues which not only provide guidelines to individuals but also help in maintenance of societies. Another function of religion is that it provides a sense of identity to the adherent in a society which is increasingly marked by rapid changes. Identification with a religious community gives many answers to the question. The congregational aspect of religion, which usually revolves around rituals brings but the community aspects which helps an individual to locate herself or himself in a society. Negative aspects of religion. We have seen that religion can be seen as a source of order and stability in society and thus perform a legitimating function by legitimizing the norms and values of society. Religion may also obscure the real power relationships and hierarchies. A religious system that diverts the fact that society is constructed by people and therefore can be changed by them. Religion therefore can sometimes come in the way of change. Another dysfunction of religion is that it tends to provide an overarching explanation of life and reality which is viewed as sacred and inviolable. This view does not allow for searching further knowledge. Religion, thus a complex phenomenon which has many complex aspects. In this unit, we have dealt with the institution of religion in an elementary and cursory way. You will find a more elaborate discussion in your subsequent readings. Summary. In this unit, we have discussed the major institutions such as the family, the marriage, economic institutions, political institutions. We have given you a basic idea of nature of each of these institutions, some of the types, the various functions and their changing roles. You will study these institutions in their various manifestations and changing roles in your subsequent reading in social sciences, particularly sociology.